This is Mari Fong. I'm the host of the Check Your Head Mental Health for Musicians podcast, and you are listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast with Bruce Moore. It's so nice to see you, Bruce.
Yes, we finally got to make this happen.
Yes, and congratulations on the Brutally Delicious podcast.
Thank you. It's
I did get a chance to
go ahead.
Yeah, to also see Mental Health.
Oh, good. What'd you think?
Mental Healthy on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? I thought it was really interesting. And I really enjoyed the conversation about, it's kind of like this ongoing question is, does music cause mood disorders, or do mood disorders, are they, attract musicians and music and that whole thing?
Right.
And no, I think, metal music, it's such an incredible release of emotion, not just for the musician, but for the fans.
Yes.
I mean, and everybody sort of being on the same page in a venue. I mean, what better feeling is that?
You're 100% right. And, I'm a hack musician, so I don't really write anything. But as a fan, it's super cathartic. I mean, I don't know what other words to use for it, but I mean, it's definitely, cranking it up as loud as it goes and listening to those distorted riffs and all that screaming. People from the outside think you're crazy and it's nuts and they don't get it. But when you're, once it gets a hold of you, that's a great way to release and to also know that other people are in the same boat as you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm a music journalist. I have the pleasure to get to go to all of these shows.
Right.
I mean, what a wonderful perk. And there are so many times where I will be in the midst where everybody's bouncing, everybody's singing, it's just this high. And it's a high that, I would say, I'll say to myself, thank you, God, for letting me be here at this moment,
right.
With all these people experiencing this, because it's a high that will make you feel good, for the whole week.
Oh, yeah.
Things, I will be on I'll be on this high and things just don't seem to bother me as much, so the energy is really powerful, especially, there's a certain time where there might be feelings of aggression or feelings where you really need to get something out emotionally, and you're not able to do that on a regular day-to-day basis. Your work isn't going to let you do that. Your home life isn't going to let you do that. But when you're at the show, that's when it's accepted. Yeah. That's when it's okay. So music really is so healing in so many ways.
And so what I was going to say, following up with that, and I don't know how familiar you are with the metal world. I know you've done had some metal guys on your podcast like Davey Suicide and stuff, but there's a community on top of the catharsis of the music. There's a community unlike, I think, any other community in the world, because it doesn't matter what race you are, what religion you are, what anything you are. You have this common bond over like a heavy riff or a heavy vocal. And immediately, you're in the mosh pit knocking people over, but you lend a hand down and pick everybody right back up again.
Right. And also, I think the dress, like sometimes there are just I don't want to call it costumes, but, when bands go out on stage, they have a certain look.
Yeah.
And whether it's makeup or whether it's, studs or what it is, it allows the fans also to come to the show and dress the way that they want. And again, it's another emotional expression of who they are, is this creativity. And, every time we're able to release that, it feels good, right? It shows people, This is who I am. And you're seen. You're able to be seen.
And accepted. So tell us about Check Your Head podcast and how you got involved doing it. And I know you were a life coach beforehand, if I read correctly. How did this come about?
It came about because I had gone through my own experiences with depression and anxiety. And, there are certain times in our life where either we're under stress or maybe there's hormonal changes that are going on. Sometimes it's a physical disorder that could cause a mood disorder. I mean, we often think of trauma as a condition that can cause depression and anxiety, and that can.
Right.
But there's also, genetic predispositions. And so I was going through a period where I was going through a lot of stress. I was kind of a workaholic, which I have to watch out for myself.
Right.
And also going through some hormonal changes that I didn't really think about. And so I fell into this really bad depression. And, with depression often comes anxiety. And I went through this journey that was really difficult. And, if you live long enough, you are going to have a lot of obstacles in your life. But to go through a mood disorder and not know what is going on and not know what the cause is, and this condition makes you feel certain ways that are kind of frightening to you. You have thoughts of, like, I just, want to not go through this anymore. I feel hopeless. I feel alone. So anyways, after I finally got the help that I needed, I wanted to help other people. And so I first got certified to be a life coach, wanting to do it one-on-one. And I did that for a while, but I found that something else was pulling me to do something on a bigger scale. And so I decided to, I approached Sweet Relief Musicians Fund because I wanted to partner with a nonprofit for musicians that I really admired, that I know was doing really good work.
Right.
And they liked my idea and about doing something for musicians and mental health. And when they asked me what I wanted to do, for some reason, I said a podcast. And the thing is that I have no idea what it takes to do a podcast.
Right.
I had only listened to a handful in my life, but something just said podcast. So I put it out there. And so I said, okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to put this together. And so I learned everything that I could about, this great industry, and I put it together, and it's been an incredible learning experience.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure it was for you as well, especially with the pandemic hitting, because I actually had a great studio, Lemon Tree Studios in Los Angeles, that donated studio time and audio engineer. We had guests. Oh my gosh, I was so fortunate.
Right.
But then when the pandemic hit, we couldn't do that anymore. So I had to learn how to set this up in my home
and run it,
get all the equipment, and then exactly all the editing, the whole thing. So it was a learning experience, but I enjoyed every moment of it, and I still really enjoy it.
That's awesome. Because,
so basically that's it.
No, that's great. And I think, well, I've done the movie like you mentioned ahead of time, but I talk to a lot of people. Like this is, I think, number 9 in podcasts for today because we do them a couple times a month. And somehow almost every conversation, especially in the last year, has ended up with the depression or anxiety or anxiousness or some kind of mood disorder. And I think I was telling you, I was talking to my buddy from Nightfall from Greece, and he wants to do something. I mean, he's doing everything he can there. And there's so many people that are, I guess, in the same boat, can identify or are actually, suffering with it and have trouble with the stigma, because stigma is a big deal here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when does mental health come up in a conversation? It's something that if you bring it up, it's awkward. Right. And sometimes people don't know how to respond. When somebody asks for help and says, I'm not doing well, or even know what questions to ask from there.
Right.
So once we normalize conversation and just talk about it as if, it is part of life, then I think once the conversation starts, we can kind of get the ball rolling and not be So not kind of look at it as something really unusual, but instead say, you know what, I know, let me see what I can do. I would love to help you. How can I help you?
Right. Because it's weird, because you wouldn't feel odd if somebody said, hey, I've got the chicken pox. But if you say, hey, I've got depression, or I've got whatever, I'm feeling effed up in my head, people totally, either, like you said, they shy away, they don't want to talk to you, nobody knows what to say. There's got to be a way to get it more to the forefront. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what you were trying to do with your movie and what I'm trying to do with a podcast. Right. The thing is that I think people are more afraid to talk about mood disorders because, a physical disorder, like we break our leg or something, we have heart disease. It's something that it doesn't have the behavioral component. When we go through a mood disorder, it affects how we think and affects our behaviors. Right. So sometimes what we say or what we do doesn't make sense to the people around us. It doesn't make sense to us.
Right.
We're also like, oh gosh, from this, what am I thinking this? Why am I saying this? Right. This is not even how I normally behave. And so there is shame and embarrassment, because I know when I went through it, I didn't want to see my friends because it's like, this is not even me. I don't even recognize this person. So, it's also, it kind of separates you from the people that you love. And that's really difficult.
How do you go about finding your guests for your show? Do you have like feelers out there, or do they contact you, or how does that come about?
It goes both ways. I think now that the podcast has gotten to be more popular, and we partnered with Sweet Relief Musicians Fund, so we have this great nonprofit that's also helping to spread the good word about the podcast. But mostly it's me pitching different publicists, and thankfully, being a music journalist for a good amount of time, I've developed some good, strong relationships. Right. So they trust me. They trust, me as a journalist, and also the work that I've done in the past. Okay. And, there are artists that will come. And like, for instance, I just dropped this episode last night, which is While She Sleeps, metalcore band.
Yeah, great guys. I've had them on the show.
Yeah, really good guys. And, they've dropped this album with the single Nervous. And Sean Long, the guitarist, said it was the most important song that he's ever written because it touched on his panic disorder, which actually turned into agoraphobia.
Oh, wow.
And he's one where he's speaking out about it. And so in that case, they, approached me because their new music was tied to mental health.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how it goes. And I've really tried to have a variety of different musicians on the podcast, because I feel that mental health, no matter what genre of music that you're in, it all plays a part.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% right. And I've listened to quite a few of their episodes. I think the one that stands out to me most is the one I mentioned earlier, the Davey suicide one. That was pretty intense. Was that done in the studio?
Yeah. What I like?
Go ahead.
That was done in the studio.
So one-on-one?
One-on-one, which I love because, you kind of feed off the energy on a one-on-one basis. And the thing I really liked about that interview is that, when we see our favorite musicians on stage, we think, oh my gosh, these people, they must have been popular through school. Everybody must have gathered around them and, wanted to be near them or whatever it is we think. But Davey's suicide and a lot of other musicians, he started out because he didn't have a whole lot of friends.
Right.
And he turned to music during a tough part in his life. And he found that people gravitated toward his music and his lyrics. and they understood what he was going through, and he started to make friends.
Right.
So, music heals in so many different ways for the musician and, of course, for the fans as well.
And it's a great uniter as well, I think. Again, back to that whole community sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I love about getting to know different bands is that every band has this image, this personality for their fans that it's like a whole different world, to step into that and to find out, like, what is the theme of the fan base? What is the message of this band? And, all the different, the logos and all the different designs. And a lot of musicians are very creative, so they can also put together these really cool artistic things beyond their music.
Yes. But in the end, I think like I was saying, a lot of them are connecting with their fans on this level and spreading this message that you're not alone. We're all in this together, but you're not alone in suffering from whatever it is, obsessive compulsive, any of those mental illnesses.
Yeah. And the thing is about a lot of mental disorders, when you're in it, the condition itself makes you feel separated from other people.
Yes.
Even if you have people surrounding you that love you, that are there for you, that are willing to talk with you, you feel disconnected.
Yes.
And that's the real tough part of it, because we all want to feel the love. We all want to feel joy and all these great things that make life worth living.
Right.
But when you're disconnected from it, it's really difficult. Yeah. So, one thing that I've tried to do with the podcast is go a step beyond. I know a lot of stories, sharing stories really helps others feel connected and knows that, there are other people that are going through the same thing they're going through, but also to provide solutions. Because when you're in it, sometimes you're so tired and exhausted, you don't know where to turn, and you feel hopeless. You feel like, what? I don't want to try this. I don't think it's going to work.
Right.
But if you have a list of resources that says, okay, I'm going to call this organization, it's for ADHD, or I'm going to see, oh, look, there's a 12-step program. Maybe I'll try that. And that's what I have listed on our website at checkheadpodcast.com. I have resources for musicians specifically,
right?
Places, of course, like Sweet Relief, Musicians Fund, and Music Cares, but also, a whole list for everybody, from fans. And then we also have a list of apps and telehealth and things that you could do online if you, feel more comfortable doing it online or, with your phone.
Right. That's awesome. And for those not familiar, where can they find you, and how often are you updating and all that sort of stuff? Give us the whole rundown.
The whole spiel. Okay. Well, I drop a new episode every 2 weeks, and it takes a little longer to put together because we not only have the musician, but we also have a mental health expert. And we try to get, some of the top people in the industry to talk about the topics that they focus on. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, with we had Dan Reidenberg of Save.org. He's a top suicide prevention expert, paired with Seether, who talked about, the aftermath of suicide.
Right.
But all the resources to listen, you could go on checkyourheadpodcast.com. And also we're on all podcast platforms. So very convenient. And we also have these new...
Good for you. I saw that on the website.
T-shirts.
Yeah.
Okay. We just dropped these, and it's superhero T-shirts and hoodies. And, it just represents people that talk about mental health, people that have gone through it. They're all superheroes. And now with this pandemic, we have so many different superheroes out there, everyday people that are fighting the good fight. Mm-hmm. And, so that's basically what it is.
Awesome. Hey, Hey, I really thoroughly enjoy what you're doing. I really appreciate it. Thank you for helping us all out. And you do it well.
Well,
You got a great voice.
thanks so much.
You got a great voice for it. It's very, very soothing.
It's so funny that people tell me that. What's funny is that they don't tell me that, like, throughout my life. But for some reason, when I was on the podcast, people are saying your voice is so soothing.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I had no idea.
That's the first thing I noticed when I put it on. I'm like, wow, some people are meant for that, I think. And then some people are like me. They're from New York with this crazy accent. That's probably not meant for it, but it works. I make do.
Well, you are perfect for your podcast. And you get right to the point, which I love. And, I know your heart's in the right place after watching Mental Health. And I love what you do, too. So thank you so much for spreading that word. And one thing, too, is that when, working with music, it is a way to have kids to listen to their heroes talk about mental health.
Yes.
And it's important because that's really where it starts. Yes. It starts, so many musicians in elementary school or their early teens.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I've seen it with my son's friends. They're out of the house now, but my youngest had I think he was 16. He committed suicide, and he's got a couple of people that are, going through all kinds of stuff. And so, yeah, I think early is right before it gets too bad, maybe, or maybe there's some sort of awareness, or somebody teaches my son how to interact because he had no idea what to do. He's like, Nick just started crying or whatever, and I don't know what to do. So yeah, they don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And you figure it's scary to go through as an adult. You can imagine how scary it is to go through as a child, just not even knowing, what is going on
in school or in the hallways or whatever. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yes. So, any way that we can make it brighter, anyway, it's really all about hope and having to hang on to that little thread of hope, when things are really dark, that will help you get through it. Yeah. But, one thing I try to say on the podcast is, because it's a lot of hard work, but when you get over that mountain, there's a much more beautiful life after that, because you've gone through something so difficult, and other things that seem to have bothered you before, they don't seem to bother you anymore because you realize it's not that important.
Right. Awesome. I really appreciate what you do. That's from the heart. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Bruce, and let's keep in touch, okay?
Yes, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I'll send you some emails if I come up with any ideas. Be well.
Okay.
All right, be well. We'll talk to you soon. Righto. Bye.
I'll see you.
Bye.